I've been standing next to Bob Brown for the last 41 years of his 54-year career here at the Richmond Times-Dispatch, mostly in political and news events all across the state, as a competitor, a colleague, and more importantly, a friend. But I think the most important and substantial time we spent together is at the Virginia General Assembly. He covered thousands of committee meetings. He grabbed onto it early on and decided it was easier going there than going out and doing weather features or covering wrecks and all that stuff. He developed these relationships with the legislators who absolutely loved him. They told him everything that was going on. He was there all the time. He developed stealth photography. He started using Leicas early on, which are very quiet, very small cameras, and caught candid moments just mostly on the floors of the session. I only did a portion of the legislative photography that he did. He was always there working late into the night, just doing all the nuanced stuff. Along with the pictures that he gave to the paper, he took a lot of candids of these legislators, and he would print them out and put little caption bubbles on them, put little biting comments that that a lot of it was inside baseball. Not a lot of folks would understand, but the next morning he would deliver these prints to the legislators on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate, and they just loved it. They loved it. Governor Northam had a bunch in the mansion while he was governor, and the walls of the press room are covered with all these prints. One of the more interesting things that happened was that all the governors get together at the inauguration, and they all get together for a picture. And when we're done taking that picture, Bob Brown will jump in front of him, and I always take that picture of him in front. And this last time, expressions on all the governors, they all know him, they all love him, was just priceless. He is apolitical. I've never really gotten an idea on which side of the fence he is, if there is a fence. It's amazing that he's still doing just spectacular work at 84 years old, but who in the heck wants to be working so hard when you're that old? The body of work that he produced at the Virginia General Assembly, I don't think will ever be equal. It was just so substantial.
It's not just always about the work with Bob. I think it's also about connections that he builds through the work. As an editor, he has done nothing but made my job easier. Bob is dedicated, professional, passionate, and meticulous. He forces you to raise your game and to raise your level. And that's one thing I always admired about Bob, because he doesn't really take a day off. We will go out on an assignment and the expectation is always exceeded. And that's what I always say. If you want to be successful, exceed expectations. And I cannot recall a day where Bob has not done that. The fact that he can turn in 30 photos from something like a press conference and still feel like he hasn't done the job appropriately is what sets him apart from just about everyone I've ever worked with. Bob is known for giving people pet names around the newsroom, and I'm sure it extends beyond the newsroom as well. But if you got one of Bob's pet names, and I've sat across the cubicle from him and heard him call out those names of people, and Bob could tell, depending on how someone walked, who was walking by without even looking. And that's how much attention he pays to detail.
The nickname he gave me, the New York kid who's spent now most of his life in Virginia, Thomas Jefferson Davis Shapiro. Well, it's said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. If Bob Brown was producing at least a picture a day for the Times-Dispatch out of the state capitol or off the campaign trail, well, that's 36,500 words at minimum. Multiply that times 54, and you have millions and millions and millions of words. I've worked alongside Bob for nearly 40 of his 54 years as a news photographer here at the Richmond newspapers. We've collaborated on a lot of political stories. We've collaborated as well on a bottle or two or three of bourbon.
Bob and I traveled thousands and thousands of miles together across Virginia for stories. And I don't think we ever had a crossword or even thought of having a crossword. And part of that was we got along really well. And some of that is due to the fact that we both like listening to the Eagles. We both like eating pie at any time of day. But I think the main reason is because I'm deaf in one ear, and so I missed half of what he said and I ignored the rest. Bob always drove on these trips we took because he had a company car, so I was riding shotgun. Shotgun, there's a loaded word riding with Bob, right? Maybe I won't use that one. We would seek out really small places like Dot and Speck and Busthead. I mean, these are places that are basically, communities is too much for them. They were signs. That's what they were. But we had a good time with them, and we would always find somebody to talk about these places, and we just had a blast. And pretty much everywhere we went, we found music or moonshine or pie. And sometimes all three, if we were really lucky. When we first started, we started doing this so long ago, we had we had an atlas, and we referred to it as the magic map. And then, of course, as things went on, we got the lady who talked to us in a recorded voice on the phone and stuff like that. No matter where we were, middle of nowhere, Bob says, well, up here on the right, just over the next rise, behind the forest or something, there's a little pawn shop I went into 15 years ago and bought a knife or a gun or something, I don't know. And we go in there, and then they would remember him, But it was like that everywhere. But it was the same with diners, too. He remembered what kind of pie or gravy he had at some place just around the next bend. He was like an encyclopedia to travel with. He just had such an enthusiasm for what he did. He just loved his job. That was the basis of it all.
Bob Brown grew up in Rockbridge County. He was born at his grandparents' house in Buena Vista and moved...
Not Buena Vista.
That's right. And moved to Lexington when he was 6. Bob had a love of music from an early age, which led to singing in the choir and a high school spot in the All-State Chorus. As a young man, he was also a member of the Virginians, a 1960s recording group. In the 50s, Bob came to Richmond to attend art school at RPI, or Richmond Professional Institute, now VCU. He switched his major to photography when he realized he could shoot better than photos than he could draw them. Interesting. In 1958, fresh out of school, Bob was hired at WRVA-TV, which is now WWBT, Channel 12, as a film editor. When he wasn't busy in the film department, he'd watch the live broadcasts of the Sailor Bob Show. And occasionally he was asked to play one of the show's wacky characters. He also wrote and recorded musical jingles for commercials on the side and shot promotional photos at local theaters. An editor at the Richmond papers, which at the time would have been the Richmond Times-Dispatch and the Virginia News Leader, those photos caught the eye of the editor, and he was asked to come work at the Richmond papers. And he started here in 1968. He was thrilled that he was going to be paid to take photos, he said. For the next 50 plus years, Bob took photos of and covered everything from the Virginia General Assembly to hurricanes and floods to high school football. He covered 11 national political conventions, where he loved running with the, quote, big dogs, end quote, in the business. Traveling abroad for photo shoots and covering the back roads of Virginia was very satisfying, but Bob felt most at home at Virginia's capital. House Speaker Todd Gilbert says, I guess it's a cliche to say that Bob is an institution, but it's true. When you see Bob stalking with a camera around his neck, you know there's something important happening. Bob never took the important moments too seriously, though. His photos of legislators and staffers with witty cartoon-like quote bubbles can be found all over the Capitol. In 1984, he published a bunch of these in a book called Capitol Comics. As one colleague said, whatever he covers, Bob is always looking for and finding the significant moment that tells the story. More important, he captures the moment so unobtrusively that the subject is often surprised by the published image. When Bob wasn't busy mentoring a young photographer or driving the back roads of Virginia, he was and will continue to be tending to his farmette in Verina with his wife Evelyn, or spending time with the grandchildren.
And
Bob-
a new puppy.
Okay. Bob has had a long, fulfilling, and illustrious career. He's met presidents, hung out with governors, covered the military in far-off places. When asked to sum up his life as a photographer, he always says, "It beats working for a living." On behalf of the Virginia Press Association, it is my honor to present you with the 2022 Lifetime Achievement Award for your exceptional contributions to the newspaper industry and to a lifetime of telling the stories and history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Congratulations, Bob. He has a photographer's eye, doesn't he?
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, you want to say anything? Besides,
Just, I figured eventually I'd get one of these. So, but I don't know. It's, like I say, it's been a good ride. And I enjoyed working with all the folks here. Well, most of them. And it's just been such a, I don't know, the last couple of weeks, month or so, all these stories and stuff like that, TV interviews, I don't know, I prefer being on this side of the camera.
right.
But I really appreciate this.
Well, we appreciate you and all that you've done for Virginia newspapers and for Virginia. We don't give this award away very often. It's been 4 years since we last gave the award. It was to Dorothy Abernathy, who retired from the AP. But Bob, as soon as we heard that you were retiring, we knew immediately that you needed to receive it. So congrats.
That's great.
And thanks for all you've done.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody.